to my channel. I finally got around to recording this intro for you. I'm going to make the Keanu backpack by Creations. Now, I just want to say I love this backpack. I just wanted to talk to you about it quickly. This was my very first one that I made. My daughter wanted a backpack, but she didn't want one that looked like a pillow. So I made it in vinyl and waterproof canvas, and the only bit of interfacing I put on it was a bit of foam on the back, and she loved it. Finally, score one. My teenage daughter finally had one of my backpacks. So this was my first one I ever made. Then I made, I can't remember now, one of these two, but this one is the pattern as it's written with all the foam interfacing. This is my son's school bag. He loves it. So this was the foam with the laptop compartment, but you can leave that off, that is optional. So, you know, because who doesn't love a bit of Tula pink? I made this one. Now again, I've put, this was in the Tula pink with waterproof canvas inside, but just to be a bit different, I used, inch of light in the lining. So I've actually made it into a cool bag. So not only is it a cool looking bag, it keeps your stuff cool as well. So it can be used as a picnic bag. There are so many uses for the bag. Now this is the one I've made my son and is in the video. I have done a couple of things differently. I hate to think what's in here because I have just literally grabbed it as he's walked in from school. I have only put interfacing on this back bit, which is some foam, just to give it the support at the back. Now, if you notice, the side panel is much wider. So that's it on the original, this is on this one. So I have added to this panel just to make it a bit bigger, and he's got his A4 school folder in it, so it can just live in the back, which fits snugly in. I added the Gusset because it just gives it a little bit more width to it, and as he sticks PE kit and everything in it. The other thing that I have done that is completely different from the pattern is I have done it with binding. So Tara's bag, actually the pattern is with no binding, but it was quite hard to turn this with all the layers and try and do the construction. So I love binding, and I am now if somebody wants to turn your bag inside out and look at your binding and how well you've done it, I say go for it. They've got to try and turn the bag back round afterwards. So in this video I show you how I do the bag with binding, and this I have literally, whatever measurement you make this here, you just have to make sure that this finished section here is the same width, so these two match. I think I added about an inch and a half to the original piece. So the whole thing is done all with binding. I just love this bag. My son is so happy. You've also got the pocket at the front. And as you can see, if you don't have any interfacing, it's really squishy and a real sort of fillable, squishy, like your regular backpack. Whereas if you've got foam in it, it's much more structured, and as my daughter says, like carrying a pillow. Teenage daughters for you. So if you'd like to see how I've done my bag, my version of the Keanu backpack, then please stay watching. If you like the video, please like and subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you. Bye. Right, so we're going to do the strap anchors now. So we will need our strap anchor piece and our shorter piece of webbing to just melt the ends, stops it from fraying. Now we're going to take this and we're going to cut it in half along there to make 2 triangles. Once you've done that, you're going to place them right sides together, and then you're going to stitch down one of the shorter sides. With the seam allowance in the pattern. Now this is where you're going to take your webbing and you're going to poke it through so that you have, making sure it's nice and flat against this edge. We're going to sew along here using the seam allowance in the pattern. And then just to make turning a little bit easier, I'm just going to clip that corner square off, as I've got vinyl. And then what you're going to do is pull them through. And get your pointy thing and just point in the corners. Now we are going to top stitch round like we did on this one, just going round and round to make reinforcement. So if you've got fabric, you can give it an iron, but this is vinyl. Once you've done your reinforcements, that's your strap connectors, strap anchors done. So now we're going to do the handle and the straps. Right, for the handle, you are going to take your handle piece and you're going to fold it in half, and then you are going to fold to the middle lines and then fold again, and then you're going to fold in half. So you are making a sealed tube. Now I'm going to top stitch that along the outside edge. handle done. Now you're just going to grab your straps. So you should have 4 pieces and they should be mirror images, so when you put them together they fit. So now we're going to do the straps. So I'm going to put I'm using fleece on the instead of foam. I'm just going to base that to it. Once you've basted your fleece to your strap, you are going to collect your longer piece of webbing and you are going to place it across the bottom here with a bit sticking out. You're going to base that to your strap. And then what you're going to do, I'm doing the long strap, so it will look like this when it's finished. So the webbing comes along the front of it. I quite like the webbing along the top. It also makes it easier to pull them out because you've got something to tug on. So once you've done that, you're then going to get your second piece. Right, so you're going to get your other piece and you're going to place it on top. And you're just going to clip it together, making sure the webbing stays out of the seam allowance. So that's the only thing you've got to make sure that you do here, is you keep the webbing away from the seam allowance. Yes, I have sewed it in to the seam allowance before now. And then we're going to sew along the 3 edges. Just not going to sew the top bit, that's going to stay so that we can pull it through. And then we're going to sew it using the seam allowance in the pattern. We're going to grab our pinking shears and we are just going to trim that down to the amount in the pattern. And using pinking shears just helps distribute the fabric, but you get the same effect using normal scissors. And then avoiding cutting this. I didn't do a very good job of melting my ends there, so let's give them a bit more of a melt. Stop it from fraying. Now this is the great bit about Tara's design with this, is these can be an absolute pain to pull through. That's where it will go wrong now. You wait for it, because I said how fantastic it is. But you literally, once you get it started, you just have to pull. It's fantastic. I love it. I've got bad hands, so trying to fight and pull stuff through can be really hard. And then I get my long pointy pokey thing, chopstick, and we're just going to push the corners out. And now this is where, if you've used fabric, you can iron it. I haven't, so I'm just going to roll the seams out between my finger and thumb to help move it. And again, see, it's not quite there, so put it between my fingers and thumbs and give it a roll and a finger press, and it makes all the difference. Now, let's grab your ruler and a marker, and you want to mark down the designated width on the end of your bag. Now we're going to take our slider, and we're going to make sure that this is the right way and there's no kinks in it. We're literally going to fold it, push it through there and onto there. And then we're going to move this to the line we just made. And then we're going to, first of all, we're going to top stitch. Making sure that the seams are on top of each other, as I can't iron it. Top stitched it. We added this on, you should do this afterwards, but it's fine. Now what I do is I just pop this at the top, eyeball it into the middle and pop a clip in on to hold it. Now what we're going to do is sew this onto here, and I'm just going to eyeball it so that it looks roughly the same all the way around. So you start on one side, making sure you've got your top stitch in length. It's not quite in the middle. Now you're just going to just going to have a few little bits where it's trying to fight itself, so just go steady. And there you have it, stitched on. I love the straps this way. So that's now your straps done, your strap anchors and your handle, wherever I've lost that to. So now we're going to go on to constructing the exterior front. So you're going to take your exterior front panel and your pocket. You've got the centre marked on there, and you've got your centre marked on your zip, and you're going to pop 2 centres together, and then you are just going to clip around, and that's when you realise that the bag you're making for your son's the same colour as your jumper. He's as mad on purple as I am. Same on the other side. Zipper, it will just make it easier to stitch that on, just being where you've got no ends on your zip, because I've got bar tack. Actually, do that now. I'm just going to put a couple of lines of stitches across, and it will stop me pulling my zip head off accidentally. I've done that enough times. So now we're going to sew that. I'm just going to base that in place. Going to use a very small seam allowance, because we're just basting this in place for the next stage. Now we are going to get the lining front pocket, and we are going to zip it back up. That just helps with the thing. Find the middle. Now we're going to sandwich that in between. And then I go up to the top and I line up the top too. And then I just wiggle and put a bit of tension on to pull down. So get a nice snug fit. The same on this side. Feels a bit weird because there's a lot of tension in the zipper. If you just keep a wiggle and a pull, you can get it all sorted. And then again, I unzip the zipper, it just makes it a bit easier to get it under the machine. My clips are a bit far down. Now we're going to stitch that with the seam allowance in the pattern. If it makes it easier, you can stitch it from the other side where you can see your stitches, but you're not on those stitches because those stitches are just your basting ones. Construction lengths. And didn't quite take the right seam allowance. Right, in the pattern it says to just take some snips on this all the way around. I don't, because I don't like snipping my zipper tape, but as I have done vinyl, it does say to put snips in now, but as I've used, I don't like to put snips in because it can make the zipper tape fray over time. So I'd rather not do it. So now I'm going to pull them down. Just, again, this is where you'd give it a good press now. I can't. Finger press. And now we're going to top stitch. Make sure everything's pulled away. And go to construction length. So that is now your two front panels joined together. We're now going to add the flap. Before we go any further, we are going to baste these layers together. I'm using a vinyl and a cotton canvas. Not very impressed with the cotton canvas, it seems to be fraying lots. But because it's a bit thicker than quilting cotton, I didn't need to put any interfacing on. Now we're just going to baste that together. Now we've basted that all together, we are now going to do our flap. So we want our flap and we want to, right, so we're going to find the middle of our flap. And we're going to find the middle mark on the zipper, and we're going to put our flap on the right side of the zipper tape, and then we are just going to clip that round. This side. And now we are going to baste that to the bag. And if you open up the zip, it just takes some of the tension off. We're just going to baste that to that. we've got that basted to that, we are going to get the so we're going to paste the exterior flap lining piece right side up, and we're going to take this and place it together. Centre markings, and then I tend to just go to the ends as they're the same shape, and then just manoeuvre them through it, around it, giving it a little tug, because that will make it sit further. Then you go round, you think, oh, that's not going to fit. Put a couple in there, and then work your way back. Like, oh, there's a big gap. If you give it a pull and a jiggle, suddenly it fits. It's all about manipulating the fabric. Now we're going to sew that with the seam allowance stated in the pattern. Take your time, slow and steady wins the race. Again, it says about snipping the snips, but I don't like to, because I don't want to weaken the zipper tab tape. Some people don't have a problem, some people do. So I'm now going to top stitch this. I love the way this pocket comes out. Love it. This is a little bit bumpy and lumpy, but it will be because of the fabrics I've used, and I can't iron it. So I'm going to undo that. Change my foot back. Making sure that you've gone back up to your top stitch length. And you've got nice Right, now you're going to say, put it in front of us, and we are going to add the pleats. So you are going to mark the distance it says on the pattern. So you're going to fold on your pinch and you are going to move it to the centre. And then you're going to just pop a clip on, or actually I'm going to just undone again. So you're going to put it up on that space and move it to the centre. And you're going to pop a clip on. And then you're going to do the same, pop it and move it to the centre. So you are putting a a pleat on the front, and then just tack it in place. And there you have your front pocket finished. So now we are right, so you're going to take your lining front pocket piece and you're going to pop this on top, and you're just going to line it all up. And then you're just going to baste it around the whole thing. You can see this is fraying really quite badly. I do like waterproof canvas, but I am discovering that too much waterproof canvas can make the bags really heavy before you even put anything in them. And then just lay this along the top. Again, it doesn't look like it fits, just give it a wiggle and a pull and it will go in. And now we're just going to baste around the whole entire edge. Now we are going to want to take our front top exterior piece. We are going to place that across the top. going to stitch that along. Using the seam allowance stated. Back to construction length stitch. Make sure my zip's done. Now we're going to bring that up and we're going to top stitch that. So back up to top stitch length. That is your front of your bag done. I mean, how cool is this zipper pocket? I mean, it's like, wow, looks so good. So we're going to pop that aside for now and we're going to do the next step. Right, so now we are going to do the back panel. So we're going to need our straps, our back panel, our strap connectors and our strap support and the vinyl, the Decaville. Now what I do to just help when we pop it round is I just put some snips around. So I've drawn round the Decaville on the vinyl because I can't iron this onto heat I can't iron it to heat it up because it's vinyl and it will melt the vinyl. Some vinyls you can, some vinyls you can't. It's very much hit and miss. So I'm going to stick some glue on here. Just stick it down. And then what I'm going to do is stick some more glue around here. And what we're doing is we're making sure it's got no raw edges on it, so when we put it on it's done. So now we're going to take it, we're just going to pop it on, pop it down. So put a couple of clips on. The corners can be a little bit tricky. Trying not to get too much bulk in, but you also want nice smooth corners. Again, if you're using if you are using cotton, this is quite straightforward to do because you've got you can use the iron. You can't iron this, otherwise you melt it. the edges over as much as we can, just by putting the snips in. This gives you more ability to move it round the curves than you'd have if you didn't have them in. It's quite easy along the long straight edge. It's the curved edge which is a little bit more difficult. Again. Now we've got a nice smoothed down, no raw edged overlay. Put that to one side just for the glue to dry. Right, now we're going to need our back panel, which I am just going to baste to the vinyl to the foam. Foam's just slightly bigger, so we'll just trim it down. Now you can use foam through lots of the bag, but my son wants it squishy, so I'm just putting it on the back to add the padding to the back for him. So now we're going to need to draw 2 lines on it. So you're going to need your charcoal. You need your charcoal and your ruler. Let's find the centre. Centre and centre again. Just a little snip. Right, so now we want to mark down. Put the ruler up the right place. And what I do is when I find the middle of the top, I'd say like pick the 4. So when I come down the 5, 6, whatever inches, I know that the 4 is lined up with my little V on the top of my pattern. So it just means that then I know I've definitely got the middle. So that's the first one. So I get up the right way. And your second mark. So now you want to get your straps. So this is the top, so this will be the bit that will come across like this. So you want to make sure it's just an extra mark for me so you know where the middle is. So you're going to want both of these. When you're looking at it, you're going to want the curvy bit pointing outwards. So you're going to lay these at the middle on the first line. A little bit difficult because I've not got, I've not used fabric, so I'm going to stick just a little bit of glue on the end there, just to keep it in place. Pop it on the line nearest the top. Again. Line it up, so they run the middle, and also so that the curvy bits come out like that. And now we're just going to baste those on. So now we've done that, we are right, so you're going to just measure the distance in the pattern. And then you're just going to sew across these. This will just help keep the straps strong. And as I'm using vinyl, I'm just avoiding putting too many seams next to each other, just so that we don't perforate same on this side. Bobbin's run out. So just change my bobbin. Both of them done. So, that's looking good. Now we want this. So as glue's had a chance to set, I'm just going to sew right to the edges. Now I have top stitched overlay. I'm going to do is have my glue. Again, you can put sticky double-sided tape on here, whatever works for you. Just to help leave it in place whilst we sew it. Sometimes just one splat outside. Some glue in here. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to turn it over. And that first line that you drew, you're going to place this on. Also going to line up the middles. Right, now I'm going to top stitch around this. Bearing in mind across the straps can be a little bit harder due to all the extra width of the This is really quite thin vinyl, so it works quite well for this, if you've got really thick vinyl, then your machine may well be struggling if you're using vinyl. So that, now the back straps added. I mean, how amazing. I'm loving the combo. Can't do much about the light, sorry, that's natural daylight coming in from a window. Right, so now we're going to put our strap extenders. Again, you're going to need your ruler and your marker, and you are going to mark up the distance on your, it's given in the pattern from the bottom. And then what you're going to do is you're going to grab your extenders and you're going to lay them on that way round. You're going to line the bottom up with the line. Pop them on. And baste them in place. Okay. So that is now your back panel completed. So we now have a front and a back done. And there's your back. Right, so we're going to do the front gusset. I'm going to construct the zippers. It's best to leave your pieces attached until you have actually ready to use them, because the front and the back are very, very similar. You also want to make note of which side is the zipper. So, zipper. So you know which side is the zipper side. I'm not using any woven interfacing because my son wants it a bit more floppy, not so rigid, and as I'm using vinyl and heavy duty or canvas, cotton canvas, it holds its shape quite well. Right, so you're going to lay the exterior front gusset right side up. Put it up the right side. This humpy shape is where is the zipper side. Okay, so this is the back, this is the front where we're going to lay the zipper. Now we're going to put the zipper middles to middles, and then we're going to pin. The zipper is longer than the gusset. Pinning all the way along the zipper side. Base that in place. Just going to change my foot. And we're just going to base this one in place. Basted that in place, we are going to get our lining, and we are now going to put these two right sides together, match up the centre, do a couple of clips, and then go down to the end, because you can do that this time because we know how much it's needed because they're the same size. And again, looks like it doesn't fit, but you give it a bit of a tug and a pull, it fits in. Sometimes if you start there and then work your way out, or start there and work your way around, you can end up with extra zipper tape. This way you don't end up with extra fabric that's not attached itself to a zipper tape or whatever. Now we're going to sew that with the seam allowance stated in the pattern. I'm going to start and stop with the back stitch. Have our front gusset sewn to the zip. Now You can take it away and iron it if you are using cotton. I'm not, so I'm going to pin it and give it a finger press, tug, nice and smooth for the top stitching. Up the sides. And that's good. Pull down the one underneath, pulled. Sure you give it a good finger press down. Right, so now we're going to top stitch along the zip, and then we're going to carry on and baste around the rest of it, so it just becomes one piece. So it just becomes one piece. Lucky I forgot to change out my foot to my vinyl, but luckily it still went round for you. So that's now basted together. Now we're going to add the back gusset to it, and this time the zipper is again on this side, but we're putting it to this side of the zipper tape. Exactly the same as we just done. Sure. Zip. again, as we don't know where this is going to land on the zipper tape, we start at the middle and then just bring it down the sides. Lining up the zipper tape with the edge. Just make sure that your ends are in the same place. Not like that one's not quite. Just move it along and move some of the clips. Yeah, it sorted itself out quite easily. Now baste it. Now you're going to grab your back one, your lining one, and now you're going to add it so you're sandwiching the zip in between. Line up the middles, couple of clips. Down to the end. A bit of a squish and a smush. Making sure, because I might be doing this wrong now, yeah, making sure when you do it, you line up this bit. I was just putting it on the wrong side. Great because it doesn't need, this fabric's great because it doesn't need interfacing, but it frays like an absolute nightmare. I had some left in my stash as it's for my son. I can always make him another one. We're going to stitch that with the required seam allowance. thought that before I started sewing it to itself. So let's go back and reinforce those stitches. So you want to make sure that it's all flat underneath. So now we want to do the same as we've done before, and we want to pull the pieces together. And again, pull it away, push it down. Baste it, pull it, and then we're going to top stitch it and baste all the way round. Stitch in length. This will be now referred to as your main zipper gusset. This will now be referred to as your main zipper gusset. I'm just going to put a little clip in the top and the bottom to show where the middle is. And now you have your gusset. We're going to add the handle, the grab handle. You're going to grab your grab handle, and it's going to go onto the flat side, and you are going to so we're going to mark the distance in the pattern, and we are going to take our handle and we are going to lay it on there, and then we're going to baste it. Way round. I'm going to baste it so it's facing down, so the ends are in the seam allowance. now got your handle attached. So now we need our base panels, our lining and our outside, and what we're going to do, making sure our zip is actually within the seam allowance, sorry, within the bag, not still sticking off the end like mine was then. We are going to place this one on top there, and the one underneath as well, and clip them together. And this is where it's really important to follow the seam allowances so that you actually get matched up. I'll stitch across there with the seam allowance, back down to construction stitch then. Flip it round, making sure there's no twists in it. To make, again, making sure there's no twists. Line up all your seams. Off the excess zipper tape. Again, just mark the ends to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere. Out them again. Now you want to flick them inside out. We're now going to top stitch. Oh. Right, so now you want to top stitch across here. So you want to make sure it's all nicely lined up, because once we've top stitched it, we are going to baste the whole thing round. Back to construction, top stitching length. Going to top stitch, baste all of the, you're going to baste the rest of it together, so put a few clips in just to make sure it stays together. Now we're going to sew along the edge. We are just basting these. Now we have our finished gusset. That is our finished gusset. Now we're going to do the laptop zip. So we want to take your laptop zip piece, your zipper, and we're going to put them down and find the middles. And the middles on. The zipper is slightly longer than needed for a moment. It just means you can have the zipper end off. I'm going to take the zipper, lining zipper panel, place that on as well. As we're not going around any edges or anything, I don't need to baste this, but if you do, just baste that and then sew with the full seam allowance once you've basted and added that on. Now we are going to bring them round, and then just like the others, we are going to baste them. I'm going to top stitch along the zip and then baste them into place around the edges. Up to top stitch length. Okay, so now we're going to do the zipper gusset. So the zipper gusset should measure the same size as your zip and your tape measure. If you notice, mine is a bit wider than in the pattern because I have made mine slightly wider because I like the back pocket a little bit bigger. And I also find it makes it just a little bit better, a little bit easier to put it all together in the end. So I'm going to sew those together now, making sure your zip is in the sew those together now, making sure your zip is within the seam allowance, or within your bag, not the wrong side of your zip. That one as well. Again, I'm going to flip it so that making sure there is no twist in this. Again, the bottom one, making sure there's no twists. And now, just like the other one, we are going to top stitch, and then we are going to baste all the way around. Seam allowance there. Now that's your top gusset. Now we're going to put that to one side for now, and we are going to prepare the lining. Now we're going to sew our zipper pocket together. So you're going to want to put the wrong side of your zipper down on top of one side, stitch across. Needles come on thread. Right, so you're going to take your zipper and one of your zipper pockets and place your zipper down on top. Stitch, grab your other pocket. Place it face down, line up, because your zip pull, your zipper tape is a bit longer than your zip, the pocket, stitch across. And yes, for any of you eagle-eared people out there, I have just changed my needle. I was thinking it was making a funny noise, and I'd actually blunted the end of it. Top stitch it. Top stitch. And then what you do is you grab your lining you've just done, making sure the zipper pull is facing the way you'd like it to, and you're going to place your zipper underneath. Move my zipper out of the way. Remember to bring it into the thing. Now, as I am birthing my bag, I can stitch up. To take your make sure to move your lining out of the way so you're only sewing your pocket, and now you have a pocket. Now the great thing about Tara's patterns is you can now go and add slip pockets, mesh pockets, whatever is required. I'm just doing the one zipper pocket because it's for my son and he never uses the pockets on the bags I've done before. So let's go on to the next step. Okay, so this is where I go off pattern now, and we are going to do the binding for the bag. I'm going to do the whole thing with binding opposed to birthing it or sewing it right sides together and then bringing it through, because being vinyl, this isn't particularly thick vinyl, but being vinyl it can be quite tricky and hard to put it all through. And actually the more I've done binding, the better I feel about it. And also the other thing to remember is if somebody wants to take your work all apart, pull it all inside out and check how good your binding is, I say let them. Right, so we're going to baste. You've got your back panel, one of your lining back panels. We're just going to baste them together. Now we want to just trim off anything that, if you look, my top and bottom is slightly different, so we'll just trim the bottom to match the top. Any bits that are sticking out, just remove. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add the laptop. I'm going to add the laptop gusset. Now we've marked the centre on there. We just want to mark the centre on here. Make sure the centres are marked on both of these. Yeah. Now what you're going to do is right sides together. Now this top one, this zipper bit is going to be the top. So I'm going to pop my 2 centre markings. I'm going to put some pins around. And then you're going to come down to the bottom, making sure it's not twisted and everything's out to the back side. I'm going to mark the 2 bottom bits together, and then I'm going to work my way back up. I'm just going to put a little tiny slit just in there, just to ease it round the corners, because you're putting a straight along a corner. And again, lining up the edges. So there is more binding to do in this method, but if you've got thicker layers, whatever, you haven't got to try and tackle it all together. And if you're wanting to put it together as per Tara's instructions, there are some other fabulous Keanu backpack patterns online on YouTube. Right, so now we're going to sew that together using the seam allowance in the pattern. Right, so now we're going to sew this together, and we're going to use the seam allowance stated in the pattern. I'm going to start just a little way down here. Construction length stitch. to unzip your zipper. Using my schema steps just to make sure that my zip stays along the seam allowance. Over the strap connectors. Smoothing out any lumps as we go. Just that to go back up the other side of the other connector. Now, there's a couple of places along the top where I didn't quite do the full seam allowance. Now we've attached the front gusset to the laptop zipper gusset to the back. So now we're going to want to do the bias binding. Okay, so I'm using a cotton webbing, but if I was using waterproof canvas, I would be using waterproof canvas. I'm literally just going to fold this in half and go around the bag. You could use bias binding, you could use whatever you would like to use. Right, I'm using cotton tape. You could use whatever you'd like to use. If you're using waterproof canvas, you can use waterproof canvas. And if you, I will carry on using white just so that you can see. And as it's for my son, he really doesn't matter. He just loves the fact he has a bag made by me. But don't be afraid of binding. Honestly, it's such a good way of doing things, especially if you've used lots of heavy interfacing, or like the Tula one I showed you at the beginning, that was made with waterproof canvas inside, fabric and foam. But what I did was I used Inch-Librite, I think. So the whole of the that is basically a cool bag. So not only is it a cool looking bag, it also keeps things cool. So this is just a cotton webbing that I had. And if you use matching cotton on to the corresponding colours of your lining and everything, then you're gonna have, you're not gonna see your stitching. And as I said, if somebody wants to turn your bag the right way round to look at your binding, I say go for it. And the great thing is this has sort of almost got a middle pattern to it, so I know I've got pretty much the same on both sides. Just going to cut it with my pinking shears to help stop the fraying. Now I'm going to just stitch along there, just up your stitch length a little bit because it's quite thick. I'm going to start down the bottom. Over the Now if you'd done black you wouldn't see it. Just check that I've caught all the way around. It's all caught in, and as I said, if I'd have done black stitching you wouldn't even see it. So now that's your laptop gusset attached to your back panel. And I must say I like binding because it also gives a good skeletal frame to the bag. But each to their own. Right, so now we're going to attach our 2 pockets. So what we want to do, is take our 2 lining panels. One will become the back of the zipper pocket here, and the other will become the back of the gusset pocket. So again, as I am binding mine, we need to sew these 2 together. Just going to baste them together. It just makes it easier to make sure you've got it all in when you come to sew them together. Come off. It's not great. Bag. So now we're just going to make sure that they're both the same size. My cutting seems to be a wee bit out on some of this for some reason. And then what we want to do now is take this, and we want to put, so this is the back of this pocket, so we want to find the middle at the top and the middle at the bottom panel. Pop it. So we're going to put them on the inside. So we're going to put the lining to the lining and the zip on the outside. I'm going to pin that on. Because I've made this gusset slightly, larger, it is easier to do this bit. It is quite tricky if you've sewn it using the measurements in the pattern. I just like a slightly bigger pocket at the back,
and it makes it just slightly easier to do this. Just a little clip in the corner, just smooch that round. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to do a very small, we're going to baste them together. So we're just going to do a small seam because we've got to add another one to it as well. My thumb doesn't want to work today. We're just going to baste that together. So now you've got, when you open it up, you've got no seam sewing on there. You've got your inside lap pocket. So now let's just baste this together. Using a small seam allowance. Out the way, make sure you're not touching anything. I mean, if you feel confident enough, you don't have to do that step, but I know I like to make sure all my layers are caught together, and it's just a bit easier if I'm not trying to fight it. So now you need your gusset. So now you're going to take the bit that's got the handle and you're going to place it right sides together with the exterior. So you've placed the exteriors together, so you've now got the interior as well. Make sure it's not twisted. So this is quite easy with this because it's really floppy. If you've got slightly heavier fabric, then this works really well. Did I not make my centre mark? Naughty, naughty. What I had. Only one side, not the other. Let's twist it together. Centre marks in. Always remember your centre marks. Right. Now I'm just going to go round and join these all together. Now I'm going to sew that with the seam allowance in the pattern. Just going to unzip that to move that out of the way. And I can unzip that one a bit. So also move that out of the way for the top. Just means then that I'm not fighting all that bulk. I'll sew it using the seam allowance in the pattern. Way. check you've got all the seams. You haven't caught anything in that you shouldn't caught in. So now I'm going to add the binding. Yeah, I don't like this cotton, it's fraying like nobody's business. Just check you haven't got any bits that are really sticking out. Start at the bottom. next seam stitched. I've just missed a bit there. Quite cool. I'm just going to add a dab of fray check here because I managed to miscalculate my webbing. And now you have your laptop back panel here. All sealed. And then you have this one. So now we've just got to add the front. So now you want to take your front panel and baste it wrong sides together. Right, so now that's basted together, we are going to do the same as we've done before, and we are going to get our bag. We are going to put everything inside it. Now I'm going to make sure we have undone some of that zip. Just make sure that they are the same length, so we've got no bits hanging over. And you've got the middles. Well, we know that's the middle there, so we'll just find the middle on here. Clip. And then we're going to pin you can see this okay. So now we're going to pin this right sides together, starting at the top. So that is now your last seam done. And if you've done your binding in the same colour, third, you won't even see your stitching on it. So this is the bag made. Let's go back this slightly, not caught all of that corner. Now we can just finger press between them all. And on your back, and I've done it, but that is your finished bag. And I've added the